Hey, guess what's happening on this week's episode of the Beating Diabetes Lifestyle Podcast with your friend and host, Oscar Camejo.
It was March 2022, nearly 2 years ago, and I had a great idea. Why not go public about my story of being diagnosed with type 2 diabetes and my journey of reversing it? Yeah, great idea. So I acted on it. I thought to myself, you might as well go ahead and launch a podcast since more and more people have been asking you about your story and they want help for themselves. So I did it, folks. On April 21st, 2022, I launched the Beating Diabetes Lifestyle Podcast. And here we are, 100 episodes later. I'm so grateful. And you know what? Since then, I've been able to help more and more people from various walks of life than ever before. I've learned a lot about what it takes to create a greater awareness around the subject of type 2 diabetes and how to manage it and how to potentially reverse it. And you know what, folks? It is possible to get your blood sugar under control. It's possible to lose weight and keep it off. I did it myself and I'm doing it. It's possible to come off medications such as cholesterol medication, diabetes medication, and blood pressure medication. It's possible to eat the foods that you love without having to go cold turkey. It's possible to start feeling better every day. That was one of my motivations. I wanted to feel better every day. I wanted to regain energy. You can too. And guess what, folks? You can enjoy a healthy lifestyle. You see, diabetes does not have to win. Pre-diabetes does not have to win. So whether you're new to my podcast or you've been a subscriber since day one, shout out to my day one folks. One thing is for sure, this podcast is and will always be focused on providing you with practical recommendations to help you manage and potentially reverse type 2 diabetes. So stick around to hear more about why I launched a podcast about beating diabetes in the first place and the top things that I've learned that I know will help you transform your life as well. So let's go. Be sure to visit the website at www.beatingdiabetieslifestyle.com for access to free resources and other information that will help you along your journey. If you would like to submit a question or a comment about the show or to learn more about the Beating Diabetes Lifestyle, you can always email me at hello@beatingdiabetieslifestyle.com. And if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe to this podcast. Welcome to the Beating Diabetes Lifestyle Podcast with me, your host, Oscar Camejo, helping diabetics make lifestyle changes to reverse type 2 diabetes. Yes, folks, 100 episodes later, I want to thank all of my listeners, whether you're here in the U.S. or any part of the world. Thank you so much. To my day one folks again, and to my new subscribers, thank you for taking the time to listen and support this podcast. Over 12,000 downloads later, folks from North America, Europe, Asia, Oceania. Shout out to the people in Oceania. Man, you guys are like top 3 in listening to my weekly podcast. Man, big ups to you guys. Also, folks in Africa, all over Africa, are literally listening to this podcast. And to my South American peeps, gracias. I really appreciate you guys. So today, let's focus and dive into today's episode, why I launched a podcast about beating diabetes. Now, if you're new to this podcast and you've never heard my story before, I'm going to share with you my story. In a nutshell, I was 268 pounds. It was August 2020. I was hospitalized, and that's when I first learned that I had developed type 2 diabetes. For most of my life, I was fairly thin, medium build, if you will. But along the way, I neglected my health. I had ballooned up to 268 pounds. I was ignoring my doctor's orders. I was ignoring my lab work. And then eventually I had a diabetes scare and I ended up in the hospital. And over 5 days, maybe 5 or 6 days, I had a decision to make. what was the rest of my life going to look like? The doctors were telling me that I was going to be on medication long term, which I hated to hear that. The doctors told me that I needed to go see a diabetes educator. I needed to go see an endocrinologist if I wanted to, right? It was up to me. They gave me a sheet of paper and said, hey, follow these guidelines, take your medication, try to eat better, try to exercise and so forth. But you're going to be on meds for the rest of your life. And I was like, no way. So literally, I was sitting in the hospital and I had a decision to make. I literally almost died that weekend, folks. I felt very sluggish leading up to the hospital. And it was just a lot going on. I was dealing with stress. I was dealing with some personal issues. A lot was going on. I had some issues with high cholesterol and I was at risk of a heart attack. And it was just so many things going on. I was dealing with aches and pains in my back, in my knees, my joints, just everything just hurt. And you know what? When I finally came out of the hospital and I remember driving home, I was like, man, my life got me to the point where I had been hospitalized. And I was not a person who frequented hospitals. I was fairly healthy, if you will. And back then that just meant I wasn't getting sick. I would get the occasional cold or whatnot, but I never really dealt with health challenges, man, until I got that diabetes scare, man. And so the only thing I knew about type 2 diabetes or diabetes in general was you had some people who died from it and some people who lost limbs. Matter of fact, I know several people who have lost limbs. They've lost toes, they've lost legs, both legs. I know a couple people who died from it and more than a couple people. And I'm like, man, you know what? I did not want that to be my story. I didn't want to check out of life, having been taken out by type 2 diabetes, man. So there was just a lot that was going through my head. I had to consider my kids and what was my kids going to be like after, me passing away. I had to consider what their life was going to be like. I had to consider, my spouse at the time. What was she going to be having to deal with? You know what I mean? But to be honest, at the end of the day, I had to make a change for me. I had to survive the diabetes scare for me. I had to turn my life around for me and experience transformation for me. And you know what, folks? I launched this podcast to help people to understand that I can relate. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a physician. I'm not a dietitian. I'm not an endocrinologist. I am simply a guy who used to be 268 pounds. That was my max weight, at least my max recorded weight. I could have been more than that, but my max recorded weight was 268 pounds. So I'm a guy who used to be 268 pounds. I was overweight. I was obese. And I was dealing with food cravings. I was dealing with stress. I was dealing with little to no sleep every night, getting maybe 4 hours of sleep a night. I was dealing with food cravings, going to the refrigerator late at night and just eating. I dealt with the consumption of a lot of sugary drinks. That was my thing. My daily habit was eating fried foods, high starch foods. I was eating a lot of sugary things like pastries just on a regular basis. And between 2014 and 2018, I really ballooned up to 268 pounds. My lifestyle at the time was just eat what you want and just not even think about it. I was not really conscious about the things that I was putting in my body. When it came to exercise, every now and then I would go for a walk, and I used to go to the gym, years and years ago. before I ballooned up, and it was always on my mind. Oh yeah, I can get back into the gym at any time. Oh, no big deal, But when I started experiencing a decline in my health, I mean, it was a reality, man. Reality struck. So when I got my health in check, when I started to pay more attention to the things that I was eating, because now I had to, I had this diabetes scare and I was experiencing a lot of issues with certain medications. And I'm like, man, you know what? Why am I feeling this way? Why am I feeling that way? And so I would go back and forth to my doctor, stick to my regular appointments. And I would let my doctor know that, hey, I was taking this and I was experiencing this particular thing, like when I was on metformin or one form of metformin, I did not like how it made me feel. Now, listen, folks, disclaimer, I'm not telling you not to take medication and I'm not telling you to take medication. Again, I'm not a physician. I'm not a medical practitioner. So you do what works for you. I know for me, when I was on metformin, I was experiencing some challenges, some digestive challenges, let's just say that. And my doctor ended up putting me on a different form of metformin, I guess. And so that helped, but I was still taking insulin injections. I think I was up to like 36 units of insulin. And man, I just hated having to stick myself in the gut every day. And you had to make sure you didn't stick yourself in the same place every day. You just had to change a different site. And I was like, man, I just knew something had to change. I didn't want to be on medication for the rest of my life. One thing I hated was there was a sheet of paper that my doctor gave me. It said medical advice, long-term medical plan or long-term medicine. So basically I would have been on medication for the rest of my life. And I asked my doctor one day, I was like, hey, how long do you think I need to be taking medication? And he was like, till your name ends up on the tombstone. He said that. My doctor is wild. He would say some funny stuff, but I was like, dude, that is not funny. But that was a motivation for me to do what I needed to do to get off meds and transform my life. So folks, I changed how I ate. I changed my exercise. I did a lot of things to really improve my health. So when I decided to launch this podcast, I launched the podcast, you're talking about maybe 2 years or so after having improved my health, after coming off meds and sending type 2 diabetes into remission. And so I was still kept going and getting blood work. And I'm like, man, I didn't do what a lot of these other people were suggesting on YouTube and, take this pill to lose weight or do this, take this diabetes medication, do this and do that. I didn't do any of that, folks. I wanted to go the simple, old school route of focusing on my diet and my exercise. And I'm glad I did. Now, I didn't just take myself off of, medication cold turkey. As my health improved, my doctor would wean me off of certain medication. I eventually was weaned off of high blood pressure medication because my blood pressure was back to normal. He eventually weaned me off of cholesterol medication because my cholesterol levels were back to normal. And then finally, he weaned me off of insulin. I was able to get off insulin, didn't need insulin anymore because my pancreas, my body was naturally producing and using the natural insulin as it was supposed to. And then I was eventually weaned off of and taken off of type 2 diabetes medication, basically metformin, Novolog, and I think, it was metformin and Novolog that I was on. And I no longer needed medication anymore. And so since then, my A1C has been back to normal. You're talking about well over 2 years. Probably 3 years now, just been living a healthy lifestyle and maintaining it. So when I decided to launch the podcast back in 2022, I was like, you know what? It's time to tell the world what I did to implement simple, practical steps and solutions to losing weight, because losing weight was very important. I wanted to tell the world about the practical things I did to get better sleep and how that affected my health and overall health. I wanted to start a podcast where I can talk about helping people to optimize their exercise and enjoy life, folks. So that's why I launched this podcast, is to help diabetics make lifestyle changes to reverse type 2 diabetes, plain and simple. You see, folks, I don't believe that this stuff should be so complicated. We make things so complicated. I mean, if you go on TikTok, you go on Instagram or Facebook, there's so many things that are just being thrown at you. And a lot of the stuff just seems very complicated, or you have people throwing all kinds of things at you to sell a product. You know, a lot of the things that I share, you'll hear, man, I'm giving away stuff. I want you to get, my free weight loss planner. I've been talking about that for the last couple weeks now. And how people can get it, just go on my website. You can download it for free and jumpstart your weight loss program. Plain and simple, man. I just really believe in giving back and helping people to turn their life around. So whether you're driving right now, or you're at work and you're listening to this podcast, or maybe you're on a walk and you're listening to this podcast, I don't know where you are. I don't know where you are listening to this. I want you to stay focused and keep moving. I know your journey up until this point may have been challenging. You may be experiencing all kinds of things in your life, but here we are. You're here right now, listening to episode 100 of the Beating Diabetes Lifestyle Podcast. And so there's some key points I want you to take away from today's podcast episode. And there are two main points, two key points out of everything I've shared on my podcast, out of every episode I've shared, out of everything I'm going to share with you today. There are two key points. Number one, what we put in our bodies is important. Number two, and what we do to our bodies is important. So again, what we put in and what we do to our bodies are very, very important. Now, under those two categories, obviously, when I talk about what we put in our bodies, I'm talking about nutrition. I'm talking about food. When I say what we do to our bodies, obviously, I'm talking about exercise, but not just exercise, but our sleep as well. Even dealing with how we approach our mental health. All of those things are very, very important. There are two main areas that many people struggle with when it comes to weight and managing chronic illnesses such as type 2 diabetes. Those two areas are diet and exercise. Again, what we put in our bodies, that's diet, nutrition, and what we do to our bodies, that's exercise. You see, oftentimes when people think of losing weight and when they think of managing type 2 diabetes, they either focus on what they eat or they focus on their exercise. Some people prioritize one or the other. But let me say this, there has to be balance. But yes, you can, let's say if you're really big into, I want to get into fitness. And I'm going to beat this diabetes through my exercise. Let me say this. You cannot out-exercise a poor diet. You can't. You see, healthy eating and regular exercise go hand in hand, especially when it comes to developing a healthy lifestyle. I had to learn about that balance. You see, achieving the proper balance between the two approaches is very important. Again, diet and exercise, nutrition and exercise. Now, when I say diet, of course, folks, I'm not talking about a diet program, right? I'm not talking about like Weight Watchers or going vegan or going pescatarian. I'm not talking about a diet program or a diet plan. I'm talking about overall nutrition, giving our bodies what it needs. right? Versus what our bodies crave. You see, maintaining a healthy diet is great, right? But by itself, it may not be enough for you to lose weight and keep it off. The same is true for exercise. Listen, you can spend hours and hours in the gym. You can be burning calories, but then load up on a bunch of junk food as soon as you leave the gym and eventually destroy your progress with every meal over a period of time. So, folks, listen, there has to be a judicious balance between your nutrition/diet and your exercise. It's very important. Those are the things that I've learned over 100 episodes over these last several years of not only reversing type 2 diabetes myself, but keeping the weight off, not only just losing weight, but maintaining a healthy lifestyle. People ask me all the time, man, I see you here at the gym, or I heard about your story, what should I be eating? So I give them some suggestions on what to eat, but I always try to bring the balance back to exercise, to include exercise. Or I may have some people that see me at the gym or like, man, they see me and they're like, man, you're physically fit. What exercises are you doing? So I tell them about my exercises, but I always bring it back to nutrition because that's what I learned. It was a random meeting that I had, or not really a meeting, but I met a random person at Costco. And that person just really educated me on nutrition, specifically about sugar intake and the impact that it will have on our health and so forth. And because of that chance encounter, man, my life has never been the same. So I launched this podcast to also share with people the things that I've learned along the way. There are many people with different situations, many people with different whys, if you will, and they're going through all kinds of struggles. But you know what? Again, when we implement a judicious balance between what we put in our bodies and what we do to our bodies, we will experience lasting results. We will experience transformation. So I want to get into the food and nutrition for a little bit, and I want to talk to you a little bit about exercise and the benefits of consistent exercise. Here are 5 dietary changes that I believe you can make to experience a healthy lifestyle. Number 1, you have to change your perception of food. You got to start thinking of food as fuel for energy. You have to start thinking of fuel as a source of nutrition. Think of food as something to enjoy. Now, eating healthy does not mean you only eat salads, folks. It does not mean that you sacrifice foods that you love and just eat foods that you don't like. Listen, if you don't like spinach, don't force yourself to eat spinach. I do recommend that you eat more vegetables. Clearly, there's a lot of benefits for eating vegetables on a regular basis. But I don't want you to eat foods that you don't like, right? Like, I'm not a big fan of cauliflower. I'll eat it every once in a while, but that's not going to be my first choice when it comes to eating something green. I'll choose broccoli before I choose cauliflower. I just don't like cauliflower. I don't like beets. Just eating straight beets, but I may get some beet powder and put it in a smoothie, but I'm not a big beets fan. There's people who love beets, and there's a lot of benefits to beets. I just don't like beets myself. Mushrooms have a lot of great benefits, a lot of nutrients, but I'm not a mushroom fan. I may eat them every once in a while, but I'm not going to run out and just buy a whole bunch of mushrooms and put it in my salads and cook with them. I'm just not. I don't like it. But if I want more vitamin C out of a food, there's foods that I will eat. So you get my point, right? So we have to change our perception of food. That was number 1. Number 2, change how much you eat. That's portion control. We shouldn't be loading our plates with a whole bunch of food in the first place. That's just a whole bunch of calories that we most likely don't even need, especially if you're going to these buffets Stay away from the buffets, folks. You know, the all you can eat places. I know it's great. I know the food seems great, but hey, we have to change how much we eat on a regular basis. Do you have to have a big breakfast every morning? No, you can control your portions. That's how I was able to lose weight. Number 3, change how often you're eating, your frequency. Now, have you been paying attention to how you eat and how often you're eating? If not, I think you should. Are you eating 6 times a day including snacks and not even realizing it? So I think that we don't have to eat as often, especially if we're taking in high calorie foods. So you have to be more conscious of that. I know for me, I have a smoothie for breakfast every morning. I may do like 2 boiled eggs and half an avocado, and that's my breakfast. Then by lunchtime, I'll have a big salad with an entree of sauteed vegetables and maybe like baked chicken or whatever, right? And so my lunch may be my biggest meal of the day. And then when it comes to dinner, I may, eat a smaller portion of food. But so those are my 3 basic meals, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, right? And in between, I'm eating fruit and mixed nuts, right? So I'm not eating a lot of food like I used to, and I'm not eating as often because I don't need to. I don't find myself being as hungry as I used to be when I was, really overweight and when I didn't have my nutrition dialed in. All right, let's move on. Number 4, change when you eat. Basically, how late are you eating? Man, I remember eating after 10 o'clock on a regular basis, 10 o'clock p.m. that is, on a regular basis, and going to bed eating something that was heavy. It could have been a hamburger with fries. It could have been, all kind of stuff that I was eating late at night. And that food would just sit on my stomach and then get up in the morning and then eat something, heavy again. I was just always bloated, just always carrying a lot of food in my stomach. So you may want to consider changing when you eat. Now, I recommend, for those who are not working overnight, let's say if you're working a regular schedule, try eating your last meal of the day between like 6 p.m. and 8 p.m. Give your body some time to digest your food before you go to bed. Right? So kind of think about that. You don't want to go to bed with a lot of food on your stomach, period. For those who work overnight, again, you have to look at your schedule, look at what works for you. But the bottom line is you don't want to eat a big meal and then just go lay down, right? Something that I've recommended for people to do is if you can, if it's safe for you to do this, after big meals, whether it's lunch or dinner, go for a 10-minute walk or inside your house. You can walk around your living room or around your house for 10 minutes. Get the body moving, help the body to digest your food, right? Number 5, change how you eat. Now, we talked about how much you eat, how often you eat, when you eat. But now you want to focus on changing how you eat, basically how you prepare or buy your food. For example, are you used to buying a lot of fried foods? If you are, and you're not really paying attention to your cholesterol, you may want to consider reducing or eliminating fried foods from your diets. I'm not just talking about French fries. I'm talking about foods like, again, you may like fried shrimp. Get baked or grilled shrimp instead. I like my shrimp blackened. Opt for baked chicken versus fried chicken. If you like fish, instead of fried fish, folks, get baked or broiled fish. I love salmon myself. I love rainbow trout. Yeah, I love red snapper. And I just stopped eating fried foods. Now, am I saying you should never eat fried food? Yeah, because there's no benefit to eating fried food other than taste. A lot of the foods are cooked deep in oils that are highly saturated or contain highly saturated fat. And you just don't need that. So just consider that. Okay, folks. So when it comes to diet and nutrition, those are the 5 things that I think we should focus on when it comes to experiencing a healthy lifestyle. So again, number 1, change your perception of food. Number 2, change how much you're eating. That's your portion control. Number 3, change how often you're eating. That's your frequency. Change when you eat, basically how late are you eating? And number 5, change how you eat. Basically pay attention to how food is prepared. Now, I mentioned about fried food versus baked foods and so forth, but also, let me say this, your seasonings. I love herbs. I love spices, but I don't recommend that you just automatically put a bunch of salt on your food in order to give it flavor. We don't have to have a lot of salt to have flavorful food. Now, my folks are Caribbean. My family's Caribbean. And we're used to eating foods that are very flavorful. So I have decided that, you know what? Every meal does not have to have salt in it for taste. There's some times where I use other herbs and spices to spice up my meals and still have flavor. So just consider that. All right, now let's move on to exercise and the benefits of consistent exercise. So remember the 2 key areas I was telling you about, what we put in our bodies. That was number 1. And number 2 is what we do to our bodies, basically the benefits of consistent exercise, right? The overall benefits of exercising, especially for diabetics, is exercise will help you to lower your blood sugar. Exercise will help you to boost your insulin sensitivity. Exercise will help you to burn fat. Exercise and consistent exercise will help to shave pounds. Of course, consistent exercise will help to protect your heart and help to develop your heart muscle, which is very important. It will help you breathe better. The more you exercise, it will help you with your lung capacity. The benefits of consistent exercise also includes helping you to feel better, helping you to look better. It helps you to build strength and endurance. Folks, I can't tell you how I am so glad that now I can walk up and down the steps and I'm not out of breath. I remember feeling this chest pain going up and down a few flights of steps. And because of that, I went to the doctor and they did a stress test and they discovered that something was going on with my heart at the time. And so I was able to do what I needed to do to turn that around. And I'm grateful to be alive today. Just put it like that. You see, when it comes to exercise, folks, the challenge that a lot of people face is that they don't have a plan. Like me, the first day I went to the gym or went back to the gym, I had no clue what to do. I had no clue where to start. I walked in and I'm looking around like, okay, I remember that I should do upper body and I think I should do lower body and maybe some core, but I had no plan. It was just randomness, total randomness. Now, folks, it's easy, like many of us have done, just pull up a YouTube video or look at something on social media and we try this and we try that and we feel great for a moment. Like, man, yeah, I did this exercise, but pulling up some random videos on YouTube and it's not an actual plan designed to help you in your situation is futile, in my opinion. There may be some people that disagree with me that say, yeah, just find something and just do it. No, for me, I needed a program that I can follow from A to Z. So I found that, I found a program and I still do it. It's actually 2 programs from the same guy. And it's free, 100% free. I've been following it. I've done this program probably like 8 or 9 times over from beginning to end. And I'm glad I did. I didn't have to hire a personal trainer. I became my own personal trainer. And I'm glad I did. So Joe Holder, shout out to Joe Holder. I interact with him sometimes on social media. He has these two programs, a 4-week program, and I believe an 8-week program on the Nike training app. And it's been a life changer and a game changer for me. I mean, again, this is not for everybody. He does a lot of high intensity workouts, but he's not focused on bulking up and becoming a bodybuilder and so forth. For me, I wanted to follow something that can help me to become more lean, right? I needed to lose weight, but I also wanted to feel more athletic because I knew I wanted to get into, just more intense exercises, right? And when I mean intense, that doesn't mean intense where you just feel like your head is going to explode and your arms are going to fall off, and cross training and stuff like that. I did cross training. Cross training at the time wasn't for me. So I wanted to find something that was practical and doable. And it was a plan that I can follow. So I found Joe Holder, and I'm glad I did. The guy's very practical. He talks about nutrition. He talks about mental health as well as exercise. So I've been following his programs for a number of years now. And like they say, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. So I love it. So my point is, doing something random is not going to get you results, but a plan will. So here's what I recommend. I recommend that you focus on your FIT, your FIT. Focus on your frequency, focus on your intensity, focus on time, right? Consistently going and getting results. You see, a lot of times when we set out to carry out a plan, we just go in willy-nilly. But I want you to think about your frequency. How often am I going to go to the gym? How often am I going to go walking? How often am I going to go running? And build a gradual, consistent frequency. Increase your intensity over time. I don't want you to go out and be like, okay, well, I'm just going to go to the gym 7 days a week and I'm just going to lift all these heavy weights every day. No, that's not practical. You're going to burn out very, very quickly. And what I've learned is gradually increasing our intensity and our frequency is what gets us lasting results. Get used to moving on a regular basis. Get used to working on your mobility and flexibility every day. You see, set a goal of, let's say, 150 minutes a week of exercise. That's roughly 30 minutes a day for about 5 days. You can do that. Look at the types of exercises that you like that will help you to get moving more. It could be aerobic exercises. If you like dance classes, Zumba classes, go for it. Something to keep you motivated and excited. If you love biking, go for it. Hiking, I love hiking. Walking, dancing. You can make a whole exercise routine out of just doing jump ropes. Running or jogging. There's tennis, pickleball. I know somebody who's like big time into pickleball. I've never played pickleball, but I hear that it's a growing sport here in the US. So try pickleball, swimming, golfing, rowing. There's so many things that you can think about and implement. But again, think about your frequency, think about your intensity, and think about the time and dedication that you will give to this newfound love for exercise and moving more. I hope you enjoyed today's podcast episode. And you know what? 100 episodes later, I've covered so many topics. And you're talking about anything from weight loss to the best and worst diets, stress management, dealing with food cravings, how to kick sugar cravings, how to read nutrition food labels. I've covered so many topics on this podcast or through my podcast episodes. So if you are looking for something to listen to and you want to go through my library, I highly recommend you do that. There's a bunch of topics that I think will benefit you. But there are 3 episodes that I really want you to check out. And these have been my most popular episodes till today. Number one is the realities about type 2 diabetes and what it takes to reverse it. Number two, the topic was reversing prediabetes through simple lifestyle changes with my guest at the time, Jill Weissenberger. That was a very popular episode. And number three, the last one, mistakes to avoid when working on losing weight and living healthier. I'm going to leave links in the show notes to these episodes because I really think that there's a reason why these were my most popular episodes. People love them. People have benefited from them. So I think you can benefit from them too. And last but not least, I did mention to you all before that I created a weight loss planner. It's a powerful tool that I believe can help you to stay focused and motivated on your weight loss journey. I want you to go to my website at beatingdiabetieslifestyle.com in order to download this free resource. You see, by putting a plan in place and tracking your progress, you will, my friend, be able to see the positive changes you are looking for. No matter how small those changes are or how great, you will experience lasting results. So be sure to check out how to get that weight loss planner. I'll also leave a link in the show notes for you to download it. Okay. So my friends, thank you so much for being with me for 100 episodes of the Beating Diabetes Lifestyle Podcast with me, your host, Oscar Camejo. And as always, stay focused, keep moving, never go back. Leap forward, bounce back because you can, my friend. And above all else, trust God. You got this. I believe in you.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for tuning in to the Beating Diabetes Lifestyle Podcast with Oscar Camejo. We hope you enjoyed this episode. As a reminder, this podcast is intended for motivational and educational purposes only. It is not a substitute for professional care by a physician or other healthcare professional or qualified fitness instructor. This podcast is provided on the understanding that it does not constitute medical or professional advice or services. If you're looking for help on your journey, seek a qualified medical practitioner. It's important that you utilize someone who is a trained, licensed healthcare professional who can help you on your journey toward good health.